to my right and then go to the left and introduce ourselves. Okay, we'll go to the left first.
Jeff Gow, City Commissioner, Cindy Dunedin.
Renee Flowers, Pinellas County Commissioner, District 7.
Deborah Sanders, St. Petersburg City Council.
Dave Albritton, Clearwater City Council.
Vince Cox, Pinellas County.
Fantastic. Now's the time for public comment. Are there any members of the public who wish to speak?
Mr. Schulman?
Yes.
Can you introduce Debbie and do the public hearing first before we go into our planning committee agenda?
Before we do okay, it was the second item on the planning committee agenda.
Right at the very top, do you have that?
Oh, you want me to do that?
Yeah.
You want me to read what you gave? So, we're gonna pause our agenda for a moment. I apologize. I just skipped what I wanted to. We will start with our annual federal grant program of projects public hearing. Debbie even tried to warn me that we were doing this. PSTA's Chief Financial Officer, Ms. Debbie Leas, will initiate our annual required public hearing. Debbie, please and thank you.
You're welcome. Good morning, Debbie Leas, Chief Financial Officer here at PSTA. And this public hearing has been scheduled so that the general public may be given the opportunity to comment on the PSTA's program of projects. To date, we have received 0 comments on the proposal. And with that, I will close the public hearing.
Fantastic. Thank you, and I apologize for going off script. That's actually a normal thing for me. So we'll start with our action items, since there was no public comment for our agenda. Yes?
I just have like 30 seconds to switch over to the planning committee,
Sure.
please. It's a separate thing I'm running.
You have to start over.
That way.
That's old music. It's the best I got.
Do you have the clicker, or do you not have PowerPoints?
I do have PowerPoint.
So that means that public hearing with no public comment is not,
So you want us to start back at the
Okay.
beginning, so we're...
And you called for public comment.
Is there public comment? There is none.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, I am ready.
Fantastic. So, item 3A would be the approval of the April 19, 2023 minutes.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Fantastic. That passes unanimously. Item 3B, the federal grant approvals. With public hearing over, now Debbie Leas will go over this year's federal grant and PSTA's overall capital program.
Thank you very much. This is actually a very routine action item that we bring to you all each and every year. It allows us to apply for our federal fiscal year 23 grants, which support both our capital and operating budgets. And what we do, I also want to introduce Pam Wrights, who's sitting in the back of the room. She is an amazing person who handles all these various grants, keeps us on task and on track, and no findings in our audits. So she does an amazing job. And as we put together a program of projects, one of the things we do is we try to allow for some flexibility in there. So should a project come in a little over budget, under budget, a new project pops up, we have that flexibility to move forward. The program of projects really reflects what you've already approved in our fiscal 23 through 27 budgets. And what I'd like to do is, we were quite incentivized as staff by the workshop that was held. And the workshop, as you recall, Trish Collins had put forth the scorecard and how that scorecard for the organization was supportive of our sustainable strategic plan. We had already been working on a scorecard for our capital projects. Matter of fact, a very nice young lady, Sabrina Swoy from our PMO office, our project management office, had been working on that, and she continued to sort of tweak it up based on that workshop. And right now, what we've done is we have created this scorecard for all of the projects that we have to basically say, does it match into what we have for our mission, visions, goals, objectives in the Sustainable Strategic Plan. What's important about this is we're also going to do this for every new project, whether it's a new project in our 24 to 28 budget, new project that pops up during the course of the year. And what I really like about what she has done through the PMO office is she is ensuring our adherence to our mission, vision, goals, and objectives. Let me put that a totally different way. We've closed what Brad called, we've closed a loophole. There is no way that a project can go forward without it being part of what the board is approving for us to do. So I think that was very, very good. Just as a brief overview, next month we'll be presenting the capital and operating budget first draft. On the capital side, a majority of our projects are anywhere from 80 to 100% funded from the federal government, from FDOT, or other funding sources. Our emphasis in the capital program is being able to replace life-expired equipment, buses, facilities, things that are in poor condition. And we follow our transit asset management plan in doing so. We also take a look at what we can do to help our customers, both from a technology standpoint and from a customer amenity standpoint. Just to give some examples of what you know is already in the budget, we will be getting our electric buses in, and that's been fully funded, as well as the electric infrastructure to keep those buses charged. We also have our Clearwater Multimodal Transit Center, which is already into design. Very exciting. We also, at the last meeting, had a robust discussion on additional buses for Sunrunner based on the crowded conditions and also adding a new stop down by the waterfront. We also have technology improvements in there. One is, and I think Jacob Labutka had presented at one of the other meetings, being able to take our different programs and put them into the transit app. And one of the things is we want to make transit as easy for customers, so I think that the project he is working on is extremely important. And then there's also things that are the backbone on our buses for technology. Those are onboard hardware. So those are the things that allow for connectivity, not only for us to our buses, but for the customers to the buses. So with implementing and going from like 0G to 5G on some of these things, we will be able to improve cybersecurity, something I'm getting very interested in and working on. For PSTA, we'll be reducing the maintenance we have on our old items, and it'll then provide a lower cost for the onboard messaging. So right now, the action item before you today is to allow us to make an application to the federal government, to FTA, for these different grants that we have under the program of projects. And then this will help to support not only the capital, which we talk about a lot, but operations as well. You may not know that we can, at our size organization, take a small piece of our federal funds and put it towards operations. We put it towards preventative maintenance labor, and we will be looking to put it towards preventative maintenance parts, such as large items, engines, transmissions, those kinds of things. And I am very proud to say, and I think it's probably been more than 10 years, the last decade, we've basically kept the number that we put towards operations flat. Now let me explain why that is important. When we get money in, it's more sustainable to take that federal funds and put it into something that's going to last years rather than one time, putting it through the operating budget. So we've kept that number small and consistent over the years, which then puts the pressure on us to try to do our operations a little more effective and efficiently. Other organizations tend to put a lot of their money towards operations, and then they have issues with their capital plan. So that is essentially it. So I'm looking for an action today on the program of projects that we can move this forward.
I move approval. No questions. Just second for the purposes of discussion.
Are there any questions? All right, so we have a motion.
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None? All right, that passed unanimously, and Debbie, don't go anywhere. We now have the state DOT grant agreement awards.
Right, there's a variety of state grants that we get, the largest of which is our block grant. So this is again allowing us to be able to apply for these and receive these grants. So we get funding for our block grant, which goes towards our labor costs, fuel costs. We have funding for our different routes, such as the 100X, the 300X. We have the, what was that, Curlew Road one? Am I missing anything, Pam?
Sunrunner.
And of course, the Sunrunner. So that's a new grant for us that we are now starting to draw down on. So this just allows us to move forward with those grants, and the state requires us to have that approved by the board.
Second.
Any questions? No, we have, Commissioner
No,
Cox?
Thank you, Commissioner, Chair, Commissioner Chair. The block grant includes a lot of things. For example, operating costs directly to provision, public fuel, utilities, labor, et cetera. I guess that answers my question. Forget about it.
Fair enough. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No? All right, thank you so much. Thank you, Debbie. Our next action item is the Veterans Fair Program,
Okay, I'm not going anywhere.
which is our final item, is to approve a recommended disabled veterans fair, free fare program. After we have been discussing this for the last few months, PSTA's planner, James Phillips, and Debbie Leas will give this presentation. James, Debbie?
All right, well, good morning again. As you recall, the USF students came to the February board meeting, and they had asked us to consider free rides for disabled veterans. Since that time in February, we have met with them, and we have been working on a structure to support what the students had requested. So after meeting with the students, we have been working to develop a framework to be able to provide free transportation to disabled veterans on our fixed route system. The action item today is what we are presenting, is to be able to do that. I've asked James to talk about the framework in which that could operate. So I'm going to turn it over to James Phillips from the Planning Department.
Thank you, Debbie. Again, good morning, Chair, Commissioners. I'm excited to go over this program. Staff met and determined to provide the best service to our riders, the vehicle that we're going to do this is with our Flamingo cards. This is already similar to other specialty fare programs that we have in our agency. So this will be a very seamless transition for staff and our riders to educate the public on how this new program will work. Our riders are comfortable with the Flamingo cards, and I'm confident that we can attract new riders by easily showing them how the Flamingo cards will also work. The Flamingo cards will provide accurate data reporting, which will be a very effective tool when attracting in external partners into the program. Through this pilot program, partnerships will be easy to find because this data is going to be very easy to track. We'll know how many users, how often they're using it. So this will make it very advantageous for external partners such as Bay Pines VA to know just how much benefit they're going to be helping with us in this program. And so only through further communications with the community, other nonprofits we're expecting will gladly hitch their wagon onto this train with us. And Debbie will go over the financial impacts.
Okay. We did take a look at what the financial impacts would be on this based on the veteran population and disabled veteran population in Pinellas County and what we anticipate in our assumptions as the ridership. And we are anticipating at this point in time an $89,000 a year annual loss as it relates to this. I think this pilot period is very important to determine the validity of our assumptions on this, which is one of the reasons we are limiting ourselves to what the students had actually requested, which was for disabled veterans. And that way it can give us an idea. Now, being a daughter of a veteran, I have a great passion for it, putting my CFO hat on. If we were to open this up to all veterans without having a data-driven approach, it could minimally be well over $400,000 of revenue loss. So I want to start small, and we talked about this last time, make sure we get the process right, get our assumptions right before we move forward on any further recommendations down the road. So we also took a look at how other transit systems have handled this. So other transit systems are paying for this out of their own revenues. Now, that doesn't mean the fact that they haven't been able to garner any, I'll say, outside or other people's money through grants or other sources, doesn't mean that we are not looking for that. It may ultimately, at the end of the day, if there are no grant funds available for this type of thing, which we're going to continue to look, we may seek both federal and state legislative support through earmarks to help with this program going forward. Again, the request on the table for the action item today is to approve this pilot program to provide disabled veterans with free rides on our fixed route service to begin on November 10th of 2023. Yes, Commissioner?
First of all, I do want to move approval on this, but I do have a couple of questions. And I like how you use the term to evaluate assumptions moving forward on this. And one of the first things came to my mind is every organization that comes to an executive committee meeting that asks for something, how are we going to address it? Because there are a lot of veterans. I'm with you, my heart. Daughter of a veteran, married to a veteran, mother of a veteran, the whole 9 yards from all areas. How will we address that response when we get other organizations who is just as worthy? How will we address that moving forward? First question. The second question is, I know that, when we're saying fixed routes, and right now Sunrunner is free for everybody, regardless of who that is. How are we going to ensure that that remains for our disabled veterans after we go back to fair? So those are my two.
Okay, that's a great question. I'll start with the first one. I think it's when somebody approaches the board and says, we would like this, I think it's a great opportunity for the board to punt it back to staff to do homework so that we can come to you like we are today and saying, here's the impacts of what is there. And there is a good part of me that says there's no greater sacrifice that is being made than that of our veterans. That's not to say police, fire, et cetera. And we actually do allow anyone in, like police in uniform can ride our system for free. I don't think that's written anywhere, but it does, we do allow for that. So I think it's great to just be able to punt it back to us and let us give you the homework, and then you can make an informed decision on that. As far as tracking that, I'll let James talk about the Flamingo program and how we can ensure that the veterans work through this.
Yes, so again, we're going to use the Flamingo cards, and very similar, we're going to mirror the TD monthly best program, where the veterans would approach customer service, show proof that they're a disabled veteran, and then that Flamingo card would be issued to them. So that Flamingo card is good on anywhere on the fixed route system.
Ever and ever.
In order to mitigate possible fraud, we would issue them a 30-day pass. And so after 30 days, the person would come back and they would get another 30-day pass. But they're already in the system, so they would just have to say, yep, it's me, I'm James again. Okay, here's your pass. And we'll reload it for you.
That's what I was looking for. Thank you, Chair.
Commissioner Flowers?
First of all, I concur with everything that's been said when it comes to veterans. But while we're working on the trial period, if you will, I did share a couple of organizations and agencies that may have some financial revenue that they would like to contribute towards this end. So certainly, reaching out to Congresswoman Kathy Castor, someone has a relationship with Congresswoman Luna, seeking support from Senator Rouson, the representatives, Rayner, Lindsey Cross, and others. There's a couple of different groups. I couldn't remember his name yesterday, but it's Ellsworth Williams. And he started Veterans Counseling Veterans. He's a veteran himself. And he's really focused on the mental health, which is a disability of veterans. And this year he's really focused on the mental health of women who've been raped in the military. And so getting them transported back and forth and whatnot. But he has different fundraisers and things like that, so he may be willing to help contribute towards this, as we go down. I'll be happy to provide you with this information. And then even with the county, we have our veterans person, our veterans department, if you will, So I did call Barry yesterday after you and I met and had a conversation with him, just letting him know what the thought process was, and he thought it was a real good idea. I did tell him that, you know, we were starting out small and just kind of looking at where this could potentially go and what the long haul cost would be. Because I shared with Brad, we have the Social Action Funding Program that funds activities like this that you could apply for through the county. Lourdes Benedict is the Assistant County Administrator over that, that piece. And then I don't know, you know, my colleague here to the left, but different municipalities, not social action funding, because they've put all that towards homeless, which that's a whole nother conversation, but they may have some other pots of money that may be able to contribute towards this, you know, so that we're not, if we end up doing this, it's not the whole brunt of $89,000 that we would see in revenue. So even if we come up with a third or half, you know, from other little sources, that would be, I think, wonderful. And don't forget about Beverly Young, Congressman Bill Young's widow. She is huge on veterans and veteran projects. I last saw her, I'll get her information for you. She has a little foundation. I last saw her at the Valor Preserve that we just did the groundbreaking on, which is 67 units for veterans right off of Seminole Boulevard on the right-hand side. It's gonna be absolutely gorgeous. And she was, you know, she was there and she's provided a lot for that and many others. So she may also be able to pick off some other people who have nonprofits that are geared towards veterans, again, where we could try to help offset some of our costs. But I think if we start now, you know, trying to hit up those dollars, maybe by the time the pilot is over, there may be some funds or at least some thought process about what's coming in to kind of help. But I do think that they deserve this, because oftentimes a lot of veterans, especially with some of the issues that they have, they don't drive. And I know the VA does have transportation, but it's like a certain place, certain time, and it gets to be a little
They oftentimes punt it to us.
arduous, yeah. So, anyway, just wanted to share those. Hopefully they are positive things that I shared today that we can use to go forward. I'll get you Ellsworth's info
Thank you.
and Beverly Young's info. Actually, I'm going to forward this to Brad now, and then Brad can, I'm sorry, I don't have your email. I got
Thank you. Commissioner Cox?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This might go to you, James, this question. They still have the travel department at VA, do they not? Where, okay. And I guess the concern would be the difficulty of one of the disabled vets getting to one of the service centers, either Grand Central here, or Pinellas Park, because that's really the only three we have up. You know, to get the Flamingo card, plus there's a temporary card, and then they'd have to go back to get that. Would there be any way possible that travel or somewhere at the VA could have a point where they could pick up Flamingo cards, kind of like we do at CVS's, and you know, so on and so forth, because I mean, they're gonna be there anyway. And it may be difficult for them, in my opinion, to go up to Grand Central. Sometimes you gotta wait in a pretty long line to get, you know, photos and so on and so forth. So has that been thought of anywhere or another?
That's certainly something we can explore with staff, you know, with mobility department, you know, with, you know, just TD enrollments, meeting the people where they are. Certainly that could be something we could explore for sure.
Because there's also other VA remote facilities too, you know, in St. Pete, there's one off of MLK and 9th Ave, and I know how difficult it can be to get a Flamingo card when I had to try to get one for someone, and but we were having a lot of computer issues back then too. And plus, it tore up the chip on my credit card. Another story for another time. But anyway, thanks. That's all I have. Just the access to the card itself, so they can be able to take, you know, seamless advantage of this program. Thank you so much for doing this too.
Thank you, Yeah?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just for clarification on the revenue loss of 89,000, that is, what we're losing is the opportunity revenue of giving them free, right? We're losing the revenue. It's not like we have other veterans that are currently riding that will now get free. We're gonna lose that. This is new ridership that just won't be paying.
No, this is revenue I expect to lose over what we are currently collecting
This is
today.
current, okay. Thank you.
Couple questions. So you're talking about the Flamingo card, they can also use the Flamingo app?
Yes.
Yes. So I'd be interested in also tracking to see how that's breaking out, number of people using the app versus the card, so we can, that can tell us a couple of things, right? One, card distribution isn't a significant issue, or it's a huge issue, right?
Right.
So that, to try to judge how that's going. You mentioned in the presentation that tracking data, I know we've talked about this before, but this is gonna be aggregate data, not, Bill went from here to there. It's just gonna be, it was, a veteran's card was swiped on this bus route to that.
Correct.
Right.
And that's a conversation I'll need to have with Shelley to see how that report's gonna look.
I just think it's important when we talk about users being tracked, that they know we're tracking the data of the usage of the service, not the person themselves.
Correct.
Actually being.
Yes.
And so it's just nice to say that out loud. But you also then talked about using that data to gain support from external partners or potential partners. Do you anticipate, how much data do you think we might need to realistically be able to go back to a partner and say?
I think you
"Here's
need at
something"?
least a few months of data, if not longer. And I'm only saying this because we were very successful in a not-for-profit that I volunteer for, where we gathered data for actually about a year's period. And we were able to say, here's what we've done, and we were able to get an earmark, to basically fund for a whole other year, that based on the data that we provided. So it's nice to say, because right now I'm saying, I think it's this many percent, this, and hopefully we will garner some money before we even implement the program. That would be my goal. But to be able to really come back and say, this is our usage, you will be supporting X number of veterans, if not more, through this.
Thank you for that. On the community outreach, can you go into a little bit more detail about how you're hoping to reach out to the community, let them know about the project or potential funding options?
So that is a rollout that we're working with marketing on how that's going to, marketing now owns the community outreach team, but, certainly linking in with the VA centers, because that's meeting them where they are, will certainly be a goal, and other community stakeholders for this.
Okay, and I know you talked about some federal funding. Is there county or state funding for?
We met with a company that had brought forth, that I don't think there's any necessarily specific state funding for this, but again, like, Commissioner Flower said, there's some people who are very passionate about it at the state level, that we may be able to, again, either get something into the budget or through an earmark, get some money.
We may also want to include Senator Jay Collins. He's in Hillsborough.
Okay.
But he is a wounded, disabled veteran.
Okay.
And sits on the appropriations for that on the state level. And who knows, we may be handling hard stuff in the future anyway. All right, any other questions, comments? Nope. All right, we had a motion and a second. So I will ask, all in favor?
Aye.
No one opposes, good. That passes unanimously. And we will move on to our, thank you both.
Thank you.
Our general services contract, which is an informational item. We will review preview of the general service contract scheduled to come back to us next month in June. PSTA's planning chief, Heather Tilbush, is here to take us through the item.
There we go.
It's all
Good morning. Still
Morning.
morning. Yes, it is. So PSTA currently holds general services consulting contracts with multiple largish, actually large, engineering and planning firms. Currently, we hold contracts with AECOM, HNTB, and WSP. These contracts are a pretty large dollar value, so we wanted to give you a heads up that we'll be coming back next month with recommendations on new firms, or maybe the same. And presently, our contracts have a not to exceed limit of $2 million. However, there is no requirement, there's no guarantee that we're gonna spend money on these contracts. So over 5 years, we've spent maybe approximately half of those dollar values. But we did, again, want to give you guys a heads up. The contracts are used by multiple departments, so in particular, planning, project management, and maintenance use these contracts rather frequently, and we use them so we don't have to go to individual procurements for smaller work. When we have really large dollar value work, we do a separate procurement. The projects are on a task order basis, and often these projects are funded by grants, which is great news. And then our current contracts are expiring soon, so we are in the middle of a procurement right now that will be brought back to you all. Some sample projects that we've done under these contracts include our Sunrunner corridor planning and environmental work. We had a consultant help us with our RAISE grant application. There's some pretty complicated benefit cost analysis that has to be done for that grant, which we successfully won. Our solar panel feasibility assessment, and then PMO used some of the cities, St. Pete, for example, we have to do a design for each location. And then we've used it for multiple plans, the Transit Asset Management Plan and the Sustainable Strategic Plan. And then work we anticipate in the next couple of years includes electric bus charge management and transition planning, solar panel further project development, and then future BRT project development. So we had a really good pre-bid conference where we had 15 firms attend. So we have a lot of interest in these, and those do include disadvantaged business enterprises, and some may be subcontracts to the larger firms, or some may be the firms themselves. The proposals are due at the end of May, and then we'll be bringing back, the evaluation committee will review and score the proposals, which we'll bring back to you at your June board meeting. And then with that, we also have Al Burns here, who oversees the procurement, and then either him or I would be happy to take any questions you may have.
All right, any questions? I do have one. Just on the solar panel project, I know we were waiting on a report from Duke, right? Do we,
Well-
feasibility, when are they doing a feasibility?
We also have Abhishek Dayal here, he can answer that.
Yeah, so we're still engaging with Duke on the solar panel and the feasibility. That was that initial task order we
Right.
gave to them. So they did most of the work related to the 3D structure. The solar panels work is still pending from Duke, so we're still engaging.
Do we have a timeline on that?
I can provide that.
Okay. I realize that it's under future work, so, okay, thank you.
The item that she had on the board was a task order with one of our 3 existing engineering firms, AECOM, to do scenario planning on the solar panels. Then we started engaging with Duke. We as Abhishek said, we haven't started with the Duke piece yet.
Okay. Any additional questions? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
On to other business. Any committee member have any other business to bring before this committee? No? All right, our next meeting is June 21st at 10:30 a.m. Thank you all. Meeting is adjourned.
You got 7 more minutes.
He's gotta go.
Yeah, but you got your charger thing.
I gotta walk out there. I'm a little slower than the
I
average.
got to answer. How do you designate
Unless I'm in
between
Carrollwood, in which case I'm a
Efficient use of
black.
time, sir.
disabled veteran and a normal veteran? That's
We operate
hard. They
efficiently, so you
register
can
all
take
the
the
time.
extra time. You're the sponge for our extra time.
I like to thank this committee for accepting my inefficiency.
You're gonna come back.
Yeah. Coming in, I know.
Do you guys alone?
Placards loading plywood with concrete in the back of their car, Home Depot all the time.
He reminds me of Jake.
Really? Come on.
Not really.